I was 8 years old when this happened to me, and the incident has not left my mind since. I was staying over at a friend's house one summer afternoon, just watching TV on the couch. My friend, who I'll call Charlie, came into the room asking me to play a game of hide and seek. Since that was my favorite game to play, I was more than happy to oblige. Charlie's parents were out at the time, so we had the whole house to ourselves, meaning more places to hide. As Charlie started counting, I quickly ran upstairs and headed to the small attic door, which had a cord dangling from it. I jumped up and grabbed the cord, bringing down the rectangular door. Instead of a retractable ladder like most attics have, Charlie's had a few horizontal handlebars on it for me to climb up, and that's exactly what I did. I may call it an attic, but it was really more of a crawl space. There was barely any room for a small child to fit comfortably, so I had to wriggle on my belly like a caterpillar to get in. Once I was all the way inside, I had to use my foot to close the door behind me, as I couldn't turn around. I rolled onto my back and waited in the dark, cramped space for what felt like 15 minutes. I was listening to all the sounds below me as I waited. Suddenly, I heard the shattering sounds of glass from downstairs. "Charlie, what was that?" I called out without thinking. There was no answer. My first thought was that Charlie had made the crash sound on purpose, so I would call out his name and reveal my location. And if that was the case, then it clearly worked, because I could hear rapid footsteps approaching the attic door soon after. That little cheater, I thought. I couldn't believe my friend would break something in his own home and risk being grounded for life by his parents just to win a game. I obviously didn't want to lose in such an unfair manner, so I shouted back that I wanted a rematch. The attic door was then pulled down, letting the light from the hallway shine in, and a head popped in to see me. Since I was pretty much stuck in a prone position, all I could do was tilt my head up and look down at the open door by my feet. I expected to see Charlie's face looking back at me, but as my eyes adjusted to the light, I realized it wasn't Charlie. It was a grown man, one whom I'd never met before, and he was looking at me with the most piercing glare I'd ever seen. I was in complete shock. That crash I heard was this guy breaking into the house, and I led him straight to me. The man had a gruff exterior, with bloodshot eyes, long dark hair, and a scraggly beard. He also looked and smelled like he hadn't bathed in months, so he was quite possibly homeless. But the most horrific detail was that his beard and lips were both caked in what looked like dried blood. I was so terrified that I just laid there, completely frozen, eyes wide like saucers, unable to scream. The man seemed just as surprised to see me, a little girl in pajamas, laying flat on her back in a confined space, visibly shaking with fear. My mouth hung open, no words came out. My bare feet were mere inches away from the man's face, so I could practically feel his disgusting breath brushing against them. I had never been so scared in my life. After a long, awkward silence, the man finally smiled at me. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a sick, malicious sort of smile, as if he were happy he'd found a new plaything. His teeth were yellow and stained with blood, almost as if he'd eaten something recently that was alive. Before I could do anything else, the man lunged with his head forward, his mouth open wide. I screamed at the top of my lungs as I hastily scrambled backwards, pulling my feet away, just as his teeth snapped shut. The sicko actually tried to bite me. He missed by a few centimeters, but he quickly tried biting me again and again. He looked like a man, but he was acting like an animal that hadn't eaten in days, and was now looking for his juicy prey. I trembled in fear as I tried scooting backwards more. But there wasn't any room to move. Thankfully, the man couldn't climb in and get me, as the attic doorway was too small for him, and there was no retractable ladder. But my legs and feet were still easy targets to grab, or in this case, bite. The man opened his disgusting mouth once again to bite me, but I kept my legs far away from him. I was in tears as I watched this guy actively trying to eat me while I was still alive. I was scared out of my mind. There was nothing I could do in this situation. The only way out was through the door that I used to get in, which was now blocked by a dangerous psychopath. It was so cramped inside that crawl space that all I could do was tilt my head up and kick my feet forward. But I was too afraid to kick this lunatic. At best, I'd knock out a few of his teeth, ticking him off even more, and at worst, I'd be giving him a chance to bite my feet or drag me out of the crawl space. There was nothing around for me to use as a weapon either, so I was pretty much helpless. After a few minutes of screaming bloody murder and desperately flailing my legs around to avoid being bitten, I could hear police sirens outside, followed by footsteps coming up the stairs. The man was then tackled to the ground by 3 officers. A 4th officer helped me get out of the attic and brought me safely outside, where my friend Charlie was waiting for me. He was completely unharmed, so the blood I saw on the man's beard didn't come from him. Apparently, Charlie heard the breaking glass and saw the man climbing in through a window, so he hid behind the couch. Then, when the man headed for the attic, he called the cops right away. If Charlie hadn't been with me that day, I probably wouldn't be here to tell this story. I'm just glad that crazy homeless guy was put away for a long time. But I'll never forget the feeling of complete helplessness as I lay inside that crawl space with an actual cannibal trying to devour me. For an 8-year-old girl, that was the stuff of nightmares. And I still have trouble being in confined spaces to this day.